Namaste. Welcome to Notable Talks, powered by Microsoft and co-presented by Value Prospect Consulting. I'm your host, Harsha Avasthi. Notable Talks, a show where we host notable personalities from around the globe. And in fact, today we have with us one such personality. I'm talking about Mr. Manish Arora, founder of Maximl. Let's give him a warm welcome. Hello, Manish. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Asha. Doing absolutely fine. Feeling wonderful.
Great. So I wanted to know that as many companies are now adopting the hybrid work-based model and the employees becoming isolated, employee connection is, of course, crucial in having an engaged workforce. While some may argue that it is not, the employee connection is not a necessary part of today's company, but I think we still believe that it is. It is an important element in maintaining the firm's productivity and output. What benefit does the workers' connectivity bring to a company, and how does your product help to foster those relationships?
Got it, sure. So, Asha, I think that's a very fair observation that you bring out, right? Of the hybrid model and people working from home. And the things that have happened over the course of last 2 years. So first of all, I'll talk about how do we look at it as our perspective on it, and second, what is Maximl doing for the persona of deskless workers inside manufacturing plants to change it, right? So I think definitely it is an important part, both around work-related outcomes as well as non-work outcomes that are there, right, for people to feel connected, to feel motivated and engaged with what they're doing. It cuts across things around how you learn, how you execute, and on a daily basis, how you feel connected with the progress of work that is happening. For a large part of the persona, when you look at the manufacturing shop floors, in fact, the problem is different. That when pandemic hit, there was a huge dearth of technology presence on the people side on manufacturing shop floors, which prevented companies to go to, let's say, a hybrid model of manufacturing kind, right? So if you would recall the days of lockdowns and the entire acceleration of this hybrid model that has happened, right? For a lot of essential commodities, for a lot of essential manufacturing plants, they had to run with a lot of precautions for those workers, but they had to work from office. So our diagnostics of this problem in the space that we work in is that there is actually a dearth of technologies that can enable people, just like, let's say, the white collar or the tech world collaborates beautifully with a lot of productive tools. There is a dearth of those technologies that could have enabled them to but be it a physical space, offline space, on an online space, engagement is important, and I think a lot of those things are going to come up. Coming to Maximl, what we do is that we look at primarily the problem statement of, first of all, looking at how to increase the efficiency of a plant, and do that vertical by vertical, right? The most important one being asset reliability and worker safety, right? These are the two problems for, let's say, a large process plant such as a refinery or a steel plant or an aluminum plant or a chemicals factory, right? These are the spaces where we increase the way you can ensure that your assets are healthy and they're performing at the parameters that they should, as well as ensure safety of assets as well as workers, right? But we do it and achieve it from a people lens, right? So where our touch points exist are where we can how will tech help a deskless worker get trained by giving them a new age experience of a Coursera like course rather than a 6-inch binder about learning how you should operate a particular equipment safely, right? So those are the aspects when you're trying to, let's say, solve problems, right? Giving you that consumer like experience to solve those technical problems through digital collaboration, whereas the age-old method is to solve it by people coming into the same room, and that's practically the only way to solve problems effectively in the industry today. So those are the areas that we focus on, and maybe look at a lot of those areas around employee engagement and how do we bring in, let's say, individual incentives. Those are areas that we look forward to solving in the future. But ours is a more efficiency lens through which we look at it, where we are providing technology for people to become more efficient at what they do inside factories, right? I think that's our perspective on this.
While deskless workers are increasing even across industries like oil and gas, chemical, metal and mining, power generation, and CPG, which requires on site work activities, how can these companies further increase safety and work quality, as well as maximize their ROI by implementing Maximal?
Got it. Got it. Got it. So I think, Harsha, I would like to probably start off by when we look at ROI, right? Let's look at where do we stand with respect to efficiency as well as safety today, right? If you look at and the clear thing in specifically the industries that we work for, which is again large continuous production environments, some of the foundational industries of society, right? That the ones that I'm talking about. There today, I think if you look at just an average refinery, an hour of downtime creates around 2.5 lakh dollars of production loss. Right? So this is a very it is a very high stake environment, both from a financial standpoint as well as the safety standpoint. Like any small non-compliance or that you make on account of how you do your operations, be it a fire hazard or anything, that has huge human as well as financial consequences, right? So that's where it is. In just refineries alone, annually, $47 billion are lost every year in unplanned downtimes, right? So that is the extent of the problem in just one subsegment of the overall market. On an average, a large Fortune 500 manufacturer spends around 4 to 5% of their revenue on asset maintenance and like future asset reliability, those sort of things, right? So that's where the industry is today, and that is where the focus is. Now, looking at how when the deskless workers are increasing, right? So there are, I think. We need to just put that into perspective, right? First of all, there's automation that is coming in, right? Which is taking away repetitive work, right? This could be of physical nature or could be of admin nature, right? So that's something that is reducing, and that will reduce the need of one category of deskless workers, the which we call as skilled, semi-skilled workers in the industry. There is another persona of deskless worker, which is the category that we hold, that we solve for in a very focused manner, which is called knowledge deskless workers, right? These are people who are operational decision makers on the shop floor, right from the supervisor who's managing, let's say, a team of 5-6 who are executing one job on an heat exchanger inside a refinery. So right from that persona to the person who has spent 15-20 years inside of a plant and are part of the operations team, maintenance team, inspection. These are the folks who are going to get their work is going to get transformed in the future as the new industry 4.0 innovations are going to come in. Machines are becoming smarter. They are going to give far more data, and there's going to be a lot of intelligence about what is happening to a particular equipment and its health, right? So that's something that is happening, right? Now, coming to how Maximl is basically going to help in this context that is going on, right? For knowledge workers, where there are huge losses and companies are spending big money in making sure that those losses are contained. What we help is that when you look at this persona of knowledge deskless workers, we help them become better at their work by augmenting their capabilities. We do two things in that. First is that we make knowledge so today knowledge is present in two forms. First is big manuals, SOPs, that is one form of this thing, which is like encyclopedia and not very instructive. And second is that most of the execution knowledge is tacit. What Maximl is doing is that we are basically bringing all of that onto a tech platform and making execution more and more instructive, so that we simplify the complexity of operations themselves. What that does is that let's say the difference in execution that a 1-year experienced technician will have as compared to a 30-year experienced technician, that is the one that you bridge, right? By making sure that you give a system where you are guiding the technician to do each and every step. That's one. Second is that we provide a platform for them to digitally collaborate, solve problems faster, and we remove a lot of non-value add activities that are there in terms of just not utilizing technology to solve problems faster, right? And the third and the most important part is that we are the company that can give you a measurable insight into how much is the SOP adherence, right? So if you look at the work that happens on the shop floor, it is all about standardization. I want to have huge amount of repeatability and reproducibility of outcomes across. And that is what we help you control by giving you a connected environment, right? This is not just about a technician entering or declaring that I have done this, I have done that. We also integrate with IoT sensors that are giving you compliance live there on the field, right? It could be as simple as, let's say, integrating with a temperature sensor and seeing that it is within the range of. So what Maximl finally is achieving is that it is systematically going to increase the quality of the work that is executed, the productivity of the workforce, and the safety standards of the industries by making sure that you deliver standard work at scale, right? So the problem is simple in when you look at small scale. If I have just one equipment to do, and this is a problem that can be solved very well by bringing in the best technician and making sure that they have full knowledge of the SOP and they are very diligent, right? But when you have to do this for thousands of equipments with thousands of manpower, which is changing every day, there is non-standard skill set and all of that. That is the gap that Maximl has addressed for large scale manufacturing operations.
So your product also offers maintenance functions, which is clearly an important factor for the mining, chemical, and CPG industries, as a large part of their functions are automated. Could you share how your product manages maintenance and the benefit it brings to the company as a whole?
Got it. Makes sense. So I think, yes, actually maintenance is a core part of what we deliver to the industries that we work for, and how to get planned maintenance as well as the preventive sort of maintenance that you do done more efficiently is a primary outcomes that we generate. If you look at the level of automation that is there, right, I think there's a huge amount of automation when it comes to the desk-bound persona. Like for example, you have entire maintenance scheduling and planning that happens in the ERP. There is something called plant maintenance module which does that. There's a lot of automation when it comes to how do you maintain the asset history and all the tasks that have been performed on it. So as soon as the part of the value chain that we look at in a big way, right, is where a maintenance work order is issued from the ERP to the time when the work is completed and that work order gets closed in the ERP, right? Between those 12 hours of a shift or 8-hour shift, right? There are a world of things that happen in between that. And that is what we are basically trying to optimize, right? Which is where we believe that there's a huge underutilization of technology. And it is a 0 to 1 game that is being playing out, right? In 50 to 60% of the customers that we got, it is the unorganized part of the value chain that we organized on a single integrated environment, rather than, let's say, replacing another connected worker platform, or let's say another point solution, which is of digital nature, right? So that's one. How we do that is that if you look at the again the value chain of work execution, the starting point of it is an SOP. Now these SOPs are long paper-based documents, 20-page, 50-page things, which you are actually expected to know by heart, go through training programs. There is the first gap there is that there is very little measurement into the learning outcomes, right? You do not really know who is your best worker. If, let's say, today you look at any large plant in the country, right? Go to a big steel plant and there would be at least 2,000 workmen who will be entering that org every day, right? Who is your best performer and who is, let's say, someone who needs a particular type of training? This data is not objectively available. So that's the first part, which we standardize by building work instructions from SOPs. So what we mean by this is, rather than we move from that encyclopedia model, or let's say age-old, how, let's say, navigation was done, right? Go and read a map, study it, then go, when you try to navigate, ask few people are there, and then go to, let's say, getting to a Google Maps type of an interface, right? Which at each point tells you do this, do that. You can this, if this is the problem that you expect, this could be the possible solutions based on how we executed the previous time, right? So the very first part is, how do we bring in work instructions which are going to help people execute their work in a less people dependent, right? So that's one. Second is that we enable a consumer-like experience, which can help you solve technical problems faster. If you look at most of the customers that we work with, a lot of them have very rampant usage of tools such as WhatsApp, right? Which actually shows the limitation of tech that is there. That there is a genuine need for people to collaborate, communicate faster, and get things done faster. Whereas there's an absence of an integrated tool within their workspace to do that, right? So that's where it is. And there's a lot of vertical innovation that is happening there, right? Which Maximl is plugging into, right? On the AR, VR front, how do you collaborate and solve problems in a more of an immersive experience? So that's the second part of what we achieve by superior collaboration and solving problems faster. And the third thing is, as I talked about it earlier, right, which is real-time compliance. We have modeled these things within our work instructions called control points, right? Control points are nothing. All of the are nothing but points that are you are supposed to comply with, right? Let's say if an equipment is supposed to be at a certain temperature, and only then you can open it. Those are the things that we can control both at a machine level, at a PLC level, at a process and a human level as well, right? So that is the power of the platform, which can deliver real-time compliance while you execute. And once all of this is executed, there's a huge flux of data that gets generated, which was never digitalized and was never available for any let's say data-driven continuous improvement initiative, right? Be it your Six Sigma, Lean, TQM, TPM, all of this have either data that is very difficult to use because it is present on paper or in forms that cannot be consumed and analyzed very quickly. So they completely rely a lot on the machine data that is out there, but this entire invaluable information which is present in the minds of your workforce in a tacit form, over time gets digitalized and institutionalized, through which you can then go to the next frontier of continuous improvement, which is real-time understanding of gaps and basically be able to address them, right? So problems such as, why is my factory number 1 doing certain things better as compared to factory number 2 on, let's say, heat exchanger maintenance or let's say vessel maintenance, right? And how can I replicate those practices here is something that you can deliver through tech. So that's the first part, right? That comes out of this continuous improvement. The second part would be that you, as soon as you run into these problems of deviations, you are able to do these cause-effect analysis, be it of human causes or process causes, right? Who is the person that exactly needs what type of training? If there is a job tomorrow for troubleshooting, if there is a breakdown that has happened, right? Who is the person who will be able to solve it with the best probability, right? These are the things that we can make more and more data-driven. So that's the holy grail of, or I would say that's the holy grail of continuous improvement and the next frontier for it, right? That you drive real-time insights and drive improvement on your shop floor through data. So that is what we do for the maintenance value chain. And a large part of where we play is the undigitalized part, right? And enrich the already digitalized and mature ecosystem of ERP, APMs, and so on.
So while there are many other collaboration platforms, industry leaders such as Indian Oil, NRL, and Reliance Industries Limited especially choose your products, what makes your product so powerful compared to the other firms' products that make those industry leaders choose Maximl and rely so heavily on your product and services?
So, Arsha, I think this has to be put into perspective of our own journey, right? I think when we started off, the kind of problems that we were solving, I think the only reason why, let's say, large Fortune 500s look towards a young company or a startup to solve a very critical process, critical and like asset integrity critical processes, such as what we do, is that there were very few people who are solving the problems that we do, right? A huge part of digitalization existed for the desk-bound ecosystem and not for the actual work execution. Most of the large legacy tech players that you know in this industry, they were solving for that, especially in the process space, right? Oil and gas, steel, chemicals, and so on, right? So I think that is where we look at. During the initial phase of our journey, we identified that there are two major reasons why, let's say, the current solutions that are there in the market are not able to address that. First is that how localized, how can you basically bring in the localized context of one shop floor into that standard process, right? So there are a lot of workflow engines, there are a lot of standard solutions. How can you make it specific to one particular site and one particular shop floor or one particular use case is very, very critical. And the the capabilities of the person who wants to do that configuration or achieve that should be taken into account while building the solution. So that was one part which resulted into the kind of no-code platform that we built for doing this, right? So that was one. The second part of it is simply looking at adoption, right? A lot of the technology solutions for the space that we built for have traditionally been top-down solutions that have been sold by a very impressive salesman to the CXO boardroom. And then it is a 6-month implementation cycle. And when rubber hits the road, the end user says, I don't want to use it. My life was better off while I was not one. And I'll find there, of course, these are smart people. They find great ways to do things that are really productive and really work, right? So unless you take the aspect of instant gratification of the final user who's going to drive that, this will not work. So I think that's the second part, which we looked at. The primary reason for that was the kind, and for which the seeds were already sown in the B2C space, right? Because these are the same people who are now adopting all of the B2C apps that have come into their mobile phones, right? So that change is already happening. They want to use more and more a superior work experience even during their work, right? To adopt this better. So that was a clear thing that we focused on from day one, and we keep that at the forefront of our product engineering efforts, right? And so you and not just through, I would say, user experience in terms of how it feels to use, but really saving time for them personally on a daily basis, right? How can you take away non-value? It's just part of the fundamental solution architecture itself. So those have been the two reasons. I think the reason why we've been able to deploy it enterprise-wide with some of the largest players, especially in the oil and gas sector, is because that of the adoption that comes out when you use the product, right? So I think those are the two reasons that we believe that this is working out, and we'll double down on them as we proceed.
Today, with the push of the pandemic, more companies are adopting digital transformation in their workplaces. However, majority of them fail to generate value from their digital transformation. First, could you kindly explain what digital transformation means from a tech perspective, and how Maximl enables organizations for achieving an effective digitalized ecosystem?
Right, Harsha. So first of all, the word transformation itself, right, means that there is a change, and as we all know, change is hard and change is slow, and especially when we talk about, let's say, large organizations and large manufacturing setup, this is bound to happen, right? And a lot of times the reasons for whenever let's say there's a charter for a digital transformation project, right? Even before we started Maximl, my job in my previous organization was to make digital transformation initiatives successful, right? And what we've seen is that to start with, on paper, there are a lot of great outcomes that will come out of digital transformation, because fundamentally it makes sense, right? The productivity of every part of the economy is supposed to increase, and tech is the way to do it at scale. It is absolutely a no-brainer that digital transformation is going to bring in value, right? Now the question is, what is the ROI and how fast can it get generated, right? That's where I think a lot of these things come in, and there are both technology as well as human-related reasons why some of these things fail, right? Technology, those are actually very clear. How agile it is to really model the real work that is happening today. Those sort of reasons, right? How fast can you get it implemented? How fast can you get it configured and ready for a particular customer? And the second part of it is how well people are adopting it, right? So that's the case. We think that so for us, right? We have looked at the ecosystem of B2B enterprise software, as well as, like, even if you look at the B2C space as well, and there are over time, products, any sort of technology company, they're becoming more and more product driven rather than sales driven, right? Which is that I want to demonstrate the value through my product rather than a promise of an ROI, right? That I want you to experience the outcomes that you want to do, that you want to achieve out of a digital transformation through the product, rather than let's say having an Excel sheet which talks about what are going to be the outcomes from it, right? So I think that's the direction, that's the right direction, and we also think about that's the philosophy that we have adopted as to what is the fastest way to implement, fastest way to for our solution to get adopted, and the fastest way in which our customers can see the needle moving on some KPI, right? That is important to them. And a lot of times that is actually the biggest issue, that buy-in does not get generated because the promise of ROI is so far out into the future that people, there is a lot of debate that happens that what is the point in this? Is the effort that we have to put for this change management worth the outcomes that would be there? And in that, I think vicious cycle is where a lot of the bulk of digital transformation projects they suffer from. And so that's the cycle that has to be broken, right? Because and like it is just human nature to have instant gratification, and I think on a group level, on a team level within the organization, that plays out exactly. So our goal is that what could be the, if let's say there are lagging parameters on which you really bring out ROI, are there any proxy leading parameters that you can build which the entire org right from the top to bottom is convinced on, and you start seeing the needle moving on that also seeing that there are outcomes that are coming out is a big there's actually like a lot of research on this, that if you start seeing those outcomes, that it in fact changes the perspective of our team towards that, right? So that's one. I think we've already talked about adoption, which is that simply reduce the energy barrier for people to get onboarded. But the third part, which is the most difficult one, is that how do you demonstrate ROI quickly? And it need not be the full ROI that you get over years, and the one that compounds with the continuous improvement initiatives. But if you start seeing some of these things kicking as soon as possible, there's a very high buy-in rate. So I think that is where we believe the future lies, not just for us, but for anyone who's building for businesses, right? How do you make sure that your ROI is measured and appreciated quickly by your customers? That's the name of the game.
Usually it's observed that many software fail to provide quick ROI to their users, especially during the initial adoption phase. What is it that makes Maximl so unique that its customers usually achieves ROI as high as 50% faster training rate for new operators and a 30% reduction in on-field issues within the deployment phase itself?
If you look at, I think we've covered some of these points during our chat today. The reason for these for you to achieve these quick ROIs, right, is firstly a function of how fast can you get your system which is relevant and which is going to help the final end user implement it first, right? If you look at the typical cycles, there is actually a 6-month engagement. If you want to solve any problem in a Fortune 500, 6 months is the cycle that it takes to solve anything, right? Let's say you have to increase asset reliability, if you have to increase all of these, right? Traditionally, they have been consulting led. There are a lot of large enterprise solutions that also take this 6-month period to get implemented. What I think what is required for people to see is that how can we implement faster firstly, right? So that people first of all get it in their hands really, really quickly, right? So that's the first part, which is what we do by doing a huge amount of templatization of the processes that we want to model. So our customers today we do not go to them and do a big business consulting phase of what are your processes like, which goes on for months at length, right? It's a very, very quick way of aligning them, of transforming from encyclopedia like SOP to our instruction paradigm. And once that is fixed within the first few weeks, the production or the authoring of the new world instructions happens at a very, very fast pace using the no code capabilities that are there, right? And we have built these capabilities for the business user. So a maintenance manager on the shop floor will be able to customize a work instruction template for their job execution within a matter of few minutes, right? It is like using, let's say, a templatized website on let's say, a tool such as Wix, and building a website for your own small business or things like that, right? So that is the paradigm which is out there, which also gives you all. So the very first part, it makes them feel that this is something that we have contributed to. This is a system that has really modeled the kind of processes that we execute on a daily basis, rather than being some sort of a standardized system, which is very important. The second part of it is, I think, coming back to the same point, right, around consumer-like experience, which can help you feel like I want to use this, and not, it shouldn't feel like it is a headache for me to just open this solution and work around this, right? So that's the second part. And the third and most important is, how are you able to demonstrate those the movement on those KPIs, right? Even if it means that we have some proxy for the main lagging parameter that we care deeply about. But if we are able to see that things such as response times to, let's say, operational issues is improving, the amount of time it takes to do regular checks on regular inspections during an inspection, daily inspection rounds, right? We will start seeing those things coming out, that work is happening with a far higher level of productivity, and the evidence of compliance is right there as a hard evidence, right? So these are things that were not present before for all of these companies that we used to work, and that those are the outcomes that we're generating. So that is how basically we believe that faster adoption and faster outcomes can be generated, right? First of all, implement faster. For that, you have to do a lot of things that are done with order and time. Let's say, do an order one. You make those tasks an order one task by doing a huge amount of templatization. So that's first. Then, how fast can I localize that template by my frontline worker, so that they feel that the ownership of the final solution themselves, giving them the consumer-like experience so that they like to use the product, take away non-value adds from their personal work so they feel gratified by using that product on a daily basis. And third is, you should have very clear communication about what should you see in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. Like, it can't be the case that after 12 months you will see these outcomes, and maybe, right? If that happens, it is very difficult for, let's say, a senior leader or, let's say, a digital transformation team to convince the business user that please use this, right? So you have to have some idea of what to expect within a few weeks of getting this solution live. So I think those are the essential Lego pieces that are through which you can build an approach towards getting faster cycles on the implementation and the ROI realization.
Okay, so as an enterprise SaaS company, how does Maximl look at leveraging Microsoft while solving for manufacturing space?
Looking at just from the aspect of solving this problem, right, and taking the mission of democratizing technology for the frontline, that is what Maximl is very passionate about. I think just from that perspective, right, there are two parts that as a SaaS company, what you would need is, let's say, access to these customers, and how can you reduce the friction of your product being in the hands of the frontline workers, right, in the manufacturing space. So that is one area in which, of course, Microsoft is one of the biggest platform that is out there. I think in the last 2-3 years, the rate at which Azure adoption has happened across the Fortune 500, which also includes manufacturing, right? We've seen, because of the Office 365 suite, the rest of the spreadsheet, PowerPoint were always one of the favorites for the persona that we're talking about. Teams has also taken off in a big way, right? We've seen that change happening right in front of us over the last couple of years specifically. So one point is around the access that the platform brings in from a tech standpoint. So we've thought of integrating. We are very soon launching our app onto the Teams platform itself, So which solves the delivery problem in a very beautiful way. Each of the knowledge workers that we are talking about, right? If let's say today any leading chemical player or any leading metals player is on Office 365 suite, they can access their maintenance processes, workflows, their SOPs. They can learn and engage and get onboarded onto their processes through the Teams interface itself, right? So um, I think the idea is that in terms of empowering the frontline workers, we want to give them tools that they really use during their 8-hour, 10-hour work that they do. And I think Teams has taken a good space already. So I think we can add a lot of value. On a strategic level as well, we see a lot of push as a great partner, because Microsoft at a very high level has thought about the manufacturing sector and its needs in a very clear way, right? So there's a manufacturing cloud there's a Microsoft Cloud for Manufacturing initiative that has been driven, right, which talks about various different verticals, and we specifically contribute in a huge way to the workforce transformation bit, where aspects of frontline worker empowerment while they execute the job, as well as how they are going to learn and how they're going to manage the knowledge that is generated on the shop floor, and the ones that flows in from various different knowledge consultants and so on, right? So that is a part that Maximl solves in a big way today already, and I think we can bring a lot to the initiatives that are out there. And the second part of it is that how do we connect all of these systems and bring the right data and knowledge to the right person at the right time while they're executing, right? So being that integrated and connected player along with the Microsoft Cloud, because all the suite of solutions that are supposed to be used by a manufacturing worker over time are going to migrate towards cloud. So I think that's the right medium for you to be present on. So I think those are the two big areas where we believe that we can leverage the capabilities and the strengths that Microsoft, specifically in the manufacturing context, has already built and has a very declared and a clear intent of going ahead with. So we are thinking about solving vertical problems on top of the things that Microsoft would be doing, right? On top of it, right? So there's of course an independent path of delivery and independent part of value creation, but I think there's certainly an interaction effect to the access and delivery mechanisms that Microsoft brings, which we 100% are going to leverage.
Okay, Manish. So now is the time for rapid fire round. So I'm simply going to ask you something. I'm basically just going to give you some words. So whatever pops up in your mind, like first word about that word, you just have to answer that. Okay. And it has to be rapid. And let's try to make it full of fire. Okay. So one word.
Let's go for it. Yeah, nervous, but
yeah. Okay. So one word comes to your mind when I say digital transformation.
Value.
Okay. People.
Aspirations.
Music.
Beautiful.
Unified communications.
I think I'd go with Microsoft. I think that's something that they have really captured in the minds of the people that they solve for.
And one word about yourself.
I think problem solver is something that I do think of when I think about what I try to bring to the table. So I'll probably go with that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, something you wish you knew earlier in life.
I think as a concept, it was of course known. You read in the books and everyone tells you that I think failure teaches you more than successes. So I think you should try to get like fail fast very quickly, and that applies to everything, right? Your personal journey, building a company, all of these things, right? So fail fast and not fail in a way that you don't get to live to fight another day. So take calculated risk, but I think fail fast is a very important I think lesson that I knew it.
Your favorite movie?
God, I think there are many. I think Avengers Endgame is my all-time favorite. I've been a huge Marvel Universe fan, so yeah,
Okay.
Nobody can take that spot. I think at least since the time that has come. Yeah.
Nice. And what is, according to you, the most productive part of the day? Parts, time, anything?
I think, of course, I think the first few hours of the days is where I think everyone has a very clear mind looking at time. So I would say the first something like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. to 10, 11. That's when I try to keep everything that is important for the day and figure that out. Right? So
I agree. Yeah. One automation tool that has made your life easier.
I think for in the most recent time, of course, this answer has been different for different parts of what I was working on. But I think one product that I absolutely love, which I use for my own productivity, is Notion. I think that's one thing that I felt is great for a lot of use cases that we find, at least in our organization. So I'm a super power user of the tool and love using it.
And your success mantra, formula, whatever you want to call it, in one line.
I don't think this is something that I have, and I don't think this is. I don't think I'll have an answer to a success mantra. I'm still figuring it out. So I think that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, just if you want to advise something, for example, if I'm somebody who is probably in the same field, or I'm trying to build myself around that, maybe a suggestion, what that would be. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I don't know if somebody is thinking of starting up. I think the simple suggestion would be go for it. As I said, right? As long as you take calculated risk, the risk of not taking a risk is the biggest risk. So then that would be the case. I wouldn't call it a success mantra, but I think the most important point is to just start. And then you figure it out from there.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So these were all the questions I had with you and for you today, Manish. And thank you so very much. They were elaborated and they were kind of in a way where I had my doubts, but you really nicely explained everything. So thank you for that as well. And of course, for giving us the time at your Notable Talks. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Asha. Had a great time today answering all of the questions. I'm happy to be part of the program. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. So this is it for this episode of Notable Talks, powered by Microsoft and co-presented by Value Prospect Consulting. We'll be back with another one real soon. Till then, please be safe, take care of yourself. This is me, Harsha Avasthi, saying goodbye.